Congressman Biggs. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How are you, Seth?
Well, I bring you good news. You said I was cynical
good.
Last time we talked. You said I had a cynical view of politics, which I'll take. It's okay. You're the chairman. But I do bring you good news. There's now evidently an exception for the mask mandate. If I heard Jen Psaki, the new press secretary, right, she was asked why Joe Biden wasn't wearing one on federal property at the Lincoln Memorial, and her answer was, and I quote directly, he was celebrating a historic day. So we now have certain exceptions to these mask mandates. I guess if you can say that you're celebrating something important and historic to you, perhaps going to a supermarket is something to celebrate. We now know that these rules have a lot of exceptions to them.
Well, they do, mostly for the left. But, you know, yesterday was National Popcorn Day. And I think, you know, why not celebrate that without wearing a mask?
Andy, we laugh a little bit because we have to, but we did on day one of the Biden administration get an unfurling of a fairly strong and serious agenda that we're going to have to grapple with, didn't we?
We sure did. Everything from attacking America's energy independence to taking us back into multilateral institutions that don't look out for the United States, which actually have just been found to have lying and admitted that they've been lying and having problems, to basically legitimizing taking U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund abortions in foreign nations, to the immigration and border security issuing the unraveling of the no-fly list that we had for certain terror-watch nations. You know, the media keeps reporting as a majority Muslim nations.
Like Venezuela?
No, these were terror watch nations that the Obama administration had created.
Isn't Venezuela on the list? Of course
they
it
were,
is.
Yeah.
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah.
This is not a Muslim majority country. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So there's a whole passel of things done in 17 executive orders in 24 hours, and not to mention the mask mandate on federal property, unless there's a historical event you are celebrating.
There is this calendar of events that there's all these holidays, like you pointed out. Yesterday was National Popcorn Day. Every day has one or two of these things. You can find these calendars online, so we might be able to get out of it. Well, I guess I'm not on federal. You're more on federal property than I am, so maybe it's better advice for you than for me. But Andy, I got a lot of calls today on that. I got a lot on everything you mentioned. The pipeline thing seems to be a very odd one. It doesn't seem to have any great effect to it that will benefit anyone, except put a lot of people out of work, over 10,000 Americans, and upset the Canadians, which, you know, that should not be our first concern, but it certainly is contradictory to the notion of reestablishing old alliances. So the pipeline one was odd. I also thought that the transgender thing was odd, and I got to tell you, if that's just day one, we have a long road in front of us. The callers I had today were saying, are these stoppable? And, you know, the only answer I know is through the courts, really, right?
Right. They're not stoppable because the U.S. system of government is majoritarian rule, and people who would be inclined to stop these in both the House and Senate can't stop them.
Right.
So that means that you involve litigation. And I mentioned this the other day, somebody I was talking to, I said, look, when Trump came in and he issued a certain number of executive orders, even though most of them were held to be legitimate within his authority under the Constitution to do so, everyone was challenged. They were challenged by well-funded left-wing interest groups, special interest groups.
Right.
On the right side, we have interest groups, but not nearly as well-funded and not nearly as capable of being as aggressive on every one of these policies. And so I don't know if we're going to see that happen, but that would be an ideal situation to try to pick off some of these executive orders.
Andy, here's what worries me about some of our organizations. You're talking about C3s, 501c3s generally. A story came to me today about a man who sits on one of the more prominent C3s. I'm not at liberty to disclose it, but you'd certainly know what it is. It's something akin to the Heritage Foundation or the Claremont Institute. Not those, but like that. And he's on their board. So, he's a big donor and on their board. And he serves on another board that's completely apolitical. And he was asked to resign from that apolitical board because he was a member of a board that backed Donald Trump or supported Donald Trump's presidency. I'm worried about these purges in the private sector, sort of, that may further even vitiate the ability for our organizations to wage the kind of legal and political campaigns we need to wage. Does this concern you? I think we're going to hear more of this.
I'm very, very concerned. You and I were talking about this, and I really do believe this is akin to the consolidation of power of early 1930s
right.
Totalitarian regimes.
Right.
Because what you're seeing is if you go back and study the Soviet Union, for instance, and you see what was happening on the inside, this is the type of thing that actually was happening
right.
post Bolshevik Revolution, probably late 20s, early 30s, where they were going through and they were basically booting people up and out in their what I would call their second or third wave of purging that was going on. And we're seeing this now, and it's an amazingly they're moving with alacrity to basically stifle any dissent. They've been talking for months now of creating lists of people who supported
right.
Donald Trump or
right.
worked with Donald Trump.
Right.
And why would you have those lists? That's what's done in a totalitarian regime in order to threaten and also to punish the dissent. And, man, that's not America. America is built on this notion of a plurality of ideas and opinions, and you get to the one that satisfies the majority of the people without offending the rights of the minority,
right.
and that's the way we go. And I'm very, very concerned about this.
It is the way we have gone. We are now governed by a youth in social media and in other places that, determine what we can read, see, and in some cases think, that have been drenched in the notion that conservatism, conservative philosophy, the way you and I think and talk, is not part of a respectable or acceptable portion of the rhetoric of democracy, of democratic rhetoric. And so with alacrity, they don't think twice about banning and censoring. And we used to think that was just a college kind of thing. It's actually now entered into the adult world, the real world, the publishing world, the printing world, the newspaper world, the journalist world. In McCarthyism, in the days of McCarthy, it was pointed out, interestingly enough, the strongest opponents of it, the biggest defenders of free speech were what? Hollywood, universities, academia, right? We don't. They're on their side now. It's a tough rock and a hard place to be in.
It really is, and if you think back on how this has developed, they've managed to. 1984, Orwell was a genius. Huxley was a genius with Brave New World, because they both are talking about these dystopian societies, and we're moving into that. Because just think about this: the rhetoric I'm hearing about anybody who supported Donald Trump, or is a Republican now. Just being a Republican, you are a white nationalist, white supremacist, and the reality is there's no. The Republican Party is the one that carried the civil rights the act of the early 60s to its completion. We're the ones that opposed Jim Crow laws. We're the ones that
anti-lynching laws. You bet the whole gamut.
Those were all driven by Republicans, including Donald Trump's mantra that everybody does better if we can get them a job, and we get them a job by having a better economy, fewer and what happened? More blacks, more minorities got into the workforce. Their lives were improving. That is not somebody who is trying to delineate according to race. But the other side projects everything that they are.
Yep.
And so when they say that we're white supremacists or we're some kind of racist, they are those racists. We welcome everybody from every every demographic group into our party because we believe in the egalitarian notion that we're all created equal. Yeah. We're imbued from God with rights, and that we can each fulfill the full measure of our creation if we're given the opportunity to make choices that freedom allows.
That's
and accept the responsibility, accountability. That's what Republicans stand for. And the other side, they're just the reason that they don't laugh on their side is because they're dour, sour people.
Yeah, which goes along with the totalitarian personality.